Hi, my name is Louise.
And hi, I'm Emma.
And you're listening to Murder or Myth,
the true crime podcast where not everything is true.
The aim of the game is to find out whether the story is actually a murder or if it's just a myth.
Now, let's get started. Hi, Louise.
Hi, Emma, how are you?
Not too bad this week. How are you doing?
Grand.
You ready for episode 44?
Yes.
Getting up there now. Okay, so let's get into my story. This is the death of Margaret Sullivan.
Okay.
So, Margaret was a 70-year-old lady at the time of her death. She lived alone in her rented house in Toledo, Ohio. The afternoon of May 5th, 1980, her landlady was scheduled to collect rent and was met with a locked door. She noted that the door handle was unusually warm and contacted the local police department. 2 officers from the Toledo PD forced their entry into the house. They found evidence of a localized fire in the living room of the house. The police had found Mrs. Sullivan's remains in the form of ashes aside from both legs from the knees down.
So by warm handle, you mean like really hot, like it was from a fire?
Or like noticeably
warm,
hot,
okay.
yeah.
I was a bit confused, but yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry. Yeah. So the remains were found 4 feet away from the fireplace where a chair had previously been. The chair was destroyed in the fire, yet the rest of the room had no fire damage. An investigation ensued with the FBI assisting local police. They quickly found the fireplace as a point of possible ignition. However, crime scene pictures from the incident showed a lack of any solid fuel in the fire. The only other ignition source within the house was the stove, but this was also ruled out as the ignition source for the fire. The coroner investigation threw up the finding of Mrs. Sullivan's death was due to burning, but could not name the source. Many individuals and the press began looking at the death as a case of spontaneous human combustion. These theories and allegations were shot down by the local PD as the case was ongoing, and this topic at the time was disputed as like a possibility in human deaths. So a report from a neighbour led investigators to believe that a cigarette could have started the fire. An eyewitness had seen Mrs. Sullivan smoking on her porch a week before her death. The investigation looked for traces of chemicals found in cigarettes, but none of the ashes tested were positive for any of these traces. The case went quickly cold in terms of the fire cause. Mrs. Sullivan's death was ruled death by burning, with no known source of ignition, as previously found by the coroner. The coroner stated that once Mrs. Sullivan had caught fire, it quickly took hold of her, and her fat stores fueled the fire, resulting in her remains being reduced mainly to ash. Only a theory could be provided as to how it had happened with no hard evidence. Possibly she had had a cigarette and proceeded to fall asleep in her chair with it still lit, after her clothing caught fire and she did not wake in time before she was overcome with flames. To this day, it's put forward as a case of spontaneous human combustion. However, it has never been acknowledged as such. And that is a tragic death of Margaret Sullivan.
Okay. Do you know, like, can they tell by ashes, like, how fast something burned or at what temperature? I remember that coming up in a previous story. I wonder if you could tell, like, what caused a fire by that.
Okay. By, like, how, like, broken down they are?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Like, something in the remains. Do you remember that from the kids one? Where it was, like, a lot of kids, and it was, like, the mafia maybe was involved, and it was kind of...
Oh, the Italian.
Yeah, the Italian one. Yeah. That had something to do with...
But didn't they find no remains in that one?
Yes, but they should have or something because of how long the fire had gone for and how hot. They would have had to find remains if the kids were still in there.
Right.
Yeah, anyway.
Okay.
That was the side quest. Okay. Or side...
A little side quest? Side question, a side...
The side question, yeah.
Theory.
Okay. I started off thinking that it was a murder. With the warm handle, I don't know, it just feels like a detail you would read in a murder.
Yeah.
Like maybe you just wouldn't think to include. Then with the way that was written about the FBI, like the way that they had come in and were assisting, I don't know, it just sounded like a murder.
Okay.
A true story. And then when you said spontaneous combustion, I was like, I think this is murder, I'm not sure would she say it. And then I was like, I think I've heard this story before because I feel like there's not that many stories about spontaneous combustion. Unless it's closely gone off the one that I've heard. But I think I saw maybe a BuzzFeed episode about an elderly woman who they kind of suspected was one of the first cases of spontaneous combustion. I'm slightly confused. How come her legs never burned? Like, because they're attached to her. Does that not confuse you?
Yeah, but like...
Which makes me think that's also a murder, because, like, that's not the kind of detail you would think to include, because I guess it could be, like... like scientifically you would think it wouldn't make sense, like if
true, yeah, but isn't like, I guess your knees are like really bony, like it's just bone on bone, it's not like there's not like
but I would
muscle
think it would
to
still
burn.
keep traveling down, like was it her feet and everything? It wasn't just her knees. Yeah, you said this bottom
yeah,
half
it's, I think I don't have it up right now, but I think it said they at below her knees.
Yeah, that point also makes me think you wouldn't write that, so I'm gonna say a murder.
You're gonna say murder?
I'm gonna say it's a murder.
I'm pretty sure this is a myth. No, I did write this. Like,
you didn't write it down.
I didn't write it on my page. No, it's a myth.
Are you sure?
Yes, it was just I
Is it
gathered
based
up.
very
It's based off all the spontaneous combustion cases that there was
Okay.
ever. I was like, shit, did I just write one of them that I seen? No, I mixed up a lot of details from different ones.
Okay.
And also different, like, there's no one called Margaret Sullivan from Toledo, Ohio. I hope not.
Do you know what? That was another detail I thought was a myth. I was like, Margaret O'Sullivan, it's going to be a Irish story. And then you went to America, and I was like...
No, Sullivan, Margaret Sullivan.
Sorry.
But yeah, I guess that's still Irish.
Not O'Sullivan, yeah, Margaret Sullivan. It still sounded very Irish to me.
But Cleveland, Ohio, that's
Would
where a
have-
bunch of Irish people went.
Yeah.
Gotta stay so close to the truth. Like, no, yeah, there was, I think, about 4 or 5 different possible cases of human combustion.
Sorry, I'm just looking the one up on BuzzFeed. It's called Mary something. I feel like this is incredibly close to this one that I've seen. Because I'm pretty sure it was a...
There was an Irish one, but that was a man.
Mary Reeser.
Yeah, well, you can look it up all you want, but...
Sorry, okay, fair enough.
No, yeah, it's part of a few different ones altogether. Like, the door handle detail, for sure, was one of the details.
And the other ones. I just feel like this is... I'm just quick... Yeah, anyway, moving on.
Do you feel cheated?
Yeah. It's just... I feel like it's just too
We'll give you
one.
an honorary, you got it right.
No, I don't need any honour.
You
I'm
don't
getting,
honor
like, way too defensive tonight. I just need to move on. I'm just trying to see... What year did you say? Oh, yeah. This
I
is
said
all
1980.
Okay.
What year did yours say?
Just need to move on. I actually can't tell. It's jumping through all the years. I think they're just mentioning all the different spontaneous combustion cases at the same point.
No, yeah, it was because it's well, I guess I looked up spontaneous combustion. I didn't want to do a murder again, so I want to do a murder that's like unsolved, explainable. So that's when I done them. But the first case ever convicted was in Ireland.
Really?
Ever put to spontaneous combustion was a man very recently, like
My laptop just slightly
2010s.
had a conniption.
Technical difficulties. Yeah, so I guess that's the story then.
When was it put to it? Like, when did it happen?
The convicted case?
Yeah.
About 2013 or something. I think it
What
was...
is convicted case?
Sorry,
like,
not convicted. Like, your man's death was like
ruled
as spontaneous human combustion, and never before had it been
What
ruled.
is it,
I
like,
think
proved?
the coroner had no... Your man, I guess I'll keep calling him your man, but he died by burning, and they couldn't find an ignition source, so that's why it was just ruled.
Spontaneous combustion.
But like the
Okay.
coroner exhausted all options, so
Yeah. Okay. That was a good story. Thanks for
no problem.
telling me, and thanks for listening to anyone out there who might be listening. Hopefully
All
someone.
our fans.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
On this week's episode, Louise did not guess my myth was in fact a myth.
Find us on all streaming platforms.
Join us next week for another thrilling adventure.
Remember, it's myth until proven murder.
Slay. Apologies.
So infuriating. I was so sure I was right. I'm getting too, into it. I need to chill out.
Louise has something to say.
Hi everyone, it's me back again. After looking more into the BuzzFeed episode that I had watched on true tragic death of Mary Reeser in Florida, she passed away in 1951, which is incredibly close to Emma's story.
1980. That's not close.
Mary, Margaret, quite similar.
Not two different names.
It was also her landlady who found the metal doorknob to be uncomfortably warm to the touch and called the police. She was found her remains that were largely ashes. Do not leave that in. Her remains that
I will.
Her remains that were largely ashes were found among the remnants of a chair in which she had been sitting.
Everyone sits in chairs.
And there was a quote, "The cigarette dropped to her lap. Her fat was the fuel that kept her burning." Which is incredibly close to Emma's story. If not, dare I say, word for word,
that is
I'm
not
calling it a murder. You can't just write another...
But the thing is, I didn't. But okay.
It's pretty much like you did. You can't just copy one story word for word. Am I a little bit bitter? Yeah, guys. I'm gonna obviously get over it and ignore this. But yeah, I just wanted everyone to know.
Were the FBI in your story?
I don't know. I'm just taking.
Was there a fireplace in your story? No. Was there a localized fire with no signs of fire damage anywhere in your story? No.
Well, there's a surviving shoe, which is quite similar to a surviving bottom leg.
Okay, well...
She'd fallen asleep while smoking and set fire to her nightclothes. That was in your story.
No, that was a theory put forward by some unknown person that's possibly what could have happened.
It's the exact same thing.
A theory. Anywho...
Okay, closing the episode out here.
Slay.